Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into a corner of Kenya's media world that tells a really complex story. It's one of explosive growth, but also, as our source material uncovers, a concerning underbelly where, well, deception can thrive.
That's right. When you look at the media landscape in Kenya, particularly television over the last decade, the transformation has been simply staggering.
Staggering is, yeah, almost an understatement. The source we're diving into today highlights this incredible scale. Back in, 2015, there were fewer than 20 TV stations.
Right. Very few.
Fast forward to 2025, and that number has just ballooned to a massive 359.
Wow.
And this explosion is largely thanks to the country's digital switchover.
And this isn't just a number on a page. It has profound economic and social impact. The source notes this growth has created over 5,000 jobs since 2015
Okay.
and contributes significantly to the economy, potentially up to 120 billion Kenyan shillings annually.
That's huge.
It is. And free-to-air television, the kind most accessible to everyday Kenyans, brings in a substantial portion of that, around 30 billion shillings a year. It really is a vital part of the national fabric.
Absolutely. It's a picture of dynamism and opportunity, for sure. But here's where the investigation we're looking at today takes us into much, much darker territory. Amidst this vibrant expansion, the source reveals how the platform of free-to-air TV is allegedly being exploited, turning the promise of winning cash prizes into a devastating con for some viewers.
And this isn't just a general observation. The specific information we're unpacking today comes from a detailed investigation by Ibrahim Karanja of Nation Media Group. It focuses intensely on one particular alleged operation.
Okay. So our mission today is to guide you through this investigation. We're going to break down exactly how this specific scam is described as working, who the source identifies as being potentially involved,
Right.
who is being targeted and impacted, and the significant challenges highlighted in the source when it comes to addressing this kind of alleged activity in Kenya today.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this is all based only on what this specific investigation reveals.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack what the source calls the sacred swindle.
All right, so where do we start? Identifying the entity.
Yeah, let's start there. The investigation points to a company called Yahweh's Media Services Limited. It's described as a religious-based media organization headquartered along Kangundo Road in Nairobi.
And under this single umbrella, they're described as operating several licensed commercial free-to-air television stations. The investigation lists Jawabu Television, Madabahu TV, Yahweh's TV, and Shahada TV.
Right. And interestingly, the source also mentions another one, Wavetime TV, which is registered under a different company but allegedly operates from the very same location.
Okay, so multiple channels, same base.
Seems like it. And the key figure at the center of this, according to the source, is the proprietor, Prophet David Minor. He's reportedly known by other names too, like Kuroro and Kageshu. The source identifies him as a religious leader with a degree in Christian ministry.
Now, what the investigation highlights next is quite specific. The source mentions his profile picture on WhatsApp. Apparently, he's shown posing with the ICT Cabinet Secretary, William Kabogo.
Okay.
And the investigation suggests this isn't just a casual photo. It's presented by the source as a potential indicator of influence peddling, implying, the use of perceived connections for leverage or advantage.
Right, suggesting a connection to power. The source also identifies Prophet Minor as the lead spiritual leader of Yahweh's evangelistic revival ministries. This is described as a church entity based downtown, but operating, according to the source, from under the same roof as these TV stations.
So the church and the media business all in the same place.
Apparently so.
Now, how do these stations allegedly draw people in? What's the hook?
Well, the investigation describes this shared operational style. They air these re-edited action movies. But with a twist, there's a movie DJ who talks over them dramatically. DJ Fish is mentioned as a popular figure doing this.
Right, I think I've heard of that style.
But it's within this programming that the alleged deception takes root. The movies are frequently interrupted for these promotions.
Wow.
A presenter, sometimes you don't even see them, urges viewers to participate in a cash prize giveaway. They tell people to send money via a mobile money till number.
Like M-Pesa.
Exactly, like M-Pesa till numbers. And they even announce names on air, claiming these are active players and winners of amounts ranging from, say, 5,000 shillings up to 200,000 shillings.
Okay, so it looks legitimate on the surface. Names being called out, prize money mentioned.
Precisely. It creates that appearance. But then we get to the absolutely critical piece of information revealed by the investigation, and this comes straight from an insider source.
Right. What did they say?
The quote is stark. "I can bet no one gets to him that money. It's purely scum."
Wow. Purely scum.
Yeah.
At the trek.
Very. This insider is described as an employee within Yahweh's media services who chose to speak out. Their motivation, as quoted in the source, was driven by having a heart, wanting to sanitize the platform, and basically witnessing innocent and desperate viewers conned.
Having a conscience, essentially.
Exactly. That employee's words are really powerful. They are quoted saying, and I'll use the phrase from the source here, "Whatever happens in those men houses is purely calm." Now, calm here likely means con.
Right. A typo, maybe, for con? Or just how they phrased it?
Could be. The quote continues, "It's all about sourcing or asking money from innocent and desperate viewers." This insider view completely reframes what appears on screen, doesn't it?
It really does. So it's not a giveaway, it's extraction.
That's what the insider alleges. And they provide details on the mechanics of the scam itself. They state the presenters are basically skilled con artists who use emotional tactics and target sensitive markers, things that would resonate with someone in need. Like promising a huge return for a tiny initial amount, saying something like, "Send 10 bob and you'll get 50,000.
Wow. Targeting hope.
Precisely. And what's truly disturbing, according to this insider account, is that absolutely no one actually wins the promised money.
Nobody.
That's the claim. Sending more money doesn't get you closer to winning. It just triggers requests for even more money.
So it's a loop. You send money, they ask for more, promising you're closer.
Exactly. And here's one of the most sort of insidious tricks described. They introduce ghost competitors.
Ghost competitors. What does that mean?
The insider explains that players are made to believe they are in a bidding war against other people. You know, someone else just sent 50 bob, sends 70 to beat them and win.
Okay.
But in reality, the source alleges they're often the only ones sending money at that moment. They're competing against a non-existent opponent just made up by the presenters.
That's incredibly deceptive. You think you're in a race, but you're the only one running, just draining your own funds.
That's the picture painted. And the money sent. The insider says it's instantly clipped. Basically removed remotely by finance people working for the alleged operation.
Clipped, like siphoned off immediately.
Yeah. And the explicit purpose given is to prevent the possibility of mobile money reversals. You know, sometimes you can reverse an M-Pesa transaction quickly if you made a mistake.
Right, yeah.
They allegedly make sure that can't happen. It's described as a sophisticated system designed for pure extraction.
It sounds highly organized, not just opportunistic.
The investigation suggests that. And the scale of this alleged theft, as presented in the source, is massive, potentially hundreds of millions of shillings stolen over time.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah. The investigation reportedly even caught Prophet David Miner on tape advising workers to reduce showing their faces on air.
Oh, really?
And acknowledging the huge sums they were making, mentioning figures like starting at 600,000 Kenyan shillings daily.
600,000 a day. That's staggering.
It is. And in a deeply, deeply unsettling detail included in the source, Prophet Miner is reportedly said to pray and dedicate the alleged theft to God.
Pray over the alleged theft.
That's what the source reports. It adds another layer of complexity, using religion potentially as a cover.
Wow. But beyond the mechanics and the scale, the investigation brings it back to the human cost, right?
Yeah.
The victims.
Absolutely. The source shares specific victim stories that really illustrate the devastating impact of this alleged scheme.
Okay, like who?
Take Ruth Wanjiko, for example. She's described as an elderly grandmother from Kikuyu, Kiambu County.
Okay.
The source details her experience. She was feeling unwell, watching TV, and in just 16 minutes on March 27, 2025, she lost 3,770 Kenyan shillings.
Nearly 4,000 shillings in 16 minutes. How?
Well, the investigation provides proof of her M-Pesa transactions. It shows this flurry of small amounts, 10 bob, 20 bob, 50, 20, 70 shillings sent repeatedly, over and over in that short time.
So she was sending tiny amounts constantly.
Yeah, exactly. And what's critical here is that the source shows she was the only person sending money during those transactions.
The only one. But they were probably telling her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was explicitly told she was competing against someone else, one of those ghost competitors we talked about.
Unbelievable. She was drawn in by the promise of winning a much larger prize, maybe 50,000 KSH, if she could just outbid this opponent who didn't even exist.
It's a heartbreaking example of manipulation, preying on hope, and perhaps confusion.
It really is. Is there another example?
Yes, the source mentions Joseph Wanuikanga. He's described as a widower desperately needing 40,000 KS for school fees for his 3 daughters.
Oh, man. School fees are a huge pressure point.
Absolutely. He gambled on April 4th, 2025, apparently after being called by a presenter from the station.
They called him.
That's what the source says. And again, the transaction proof included in the source confirms the same pattern. He was sending money alone, playing against a ghost competitor.
And how much did he lose?
He lost close to 7,000 shillings in just 25 minutes. Pouring money he likely couldn't afford into this alleged scheme, trying to secure funds for his kids' education.
7,000 shillings. For someone needing school fees, that's a huge amount.
It absolutely is. And these stories really underscore the target audience identified by the investigation: vulnerable individuals. People who rely on a widely accessible, free-to-air TV, maybe lack internet for streaming or other info sources.
Yeah?
For people like Ruth and Joseph, sums like 7,000 shillings are not trivial. They represent a significant portion of their limited daily or weekly income, or maybe their savings. They are allegedly targeted precisely because of their circumstances and their trust in what they see on TV.
It's predatory. And to lend an air of credibility,
Yeah.
the investigation notes the presence of popular figures on these stations,
Yes,
right?
that's another angle. Gospel superstar Benny Gade, described as a household name who even supported President Kenyatta in the past, hosts a Sunday morning show on these stations.
Okay, so a well-known, trusted face.
Exactly. Now, the investigation is careful to clarify it's not accusing Gade of any involvement in the scam itself.
Right.
But it poses the important question: does he know what's allegedly happening elsewhere on these stations he works for?
What was his response?
His reported response was basically that he only hosts his gospel show, he doesn't get involved in other programming activities, he hasn't heard any complaints, and he directed questions to the management.
Okay, so distancing himself.
Pretty much.
Did the investigators try to talk to Prophet Minor directly?
They did. NTV's investigation documented their attempts to get a direct response from him. They made phone calls in May 2025.
Yeah.
According to the source, his reactions were dismissive. He apparently warned of legal action, refused interviews.
Defensive.
Very. And reportedly even tried to delete WhatsApp messages after he had inadvertently confirmed he'd received NTV's letter outlining the investigation's findings.
Trying to erase the confirmation?
Yeah.
That doesn't look good.
No. They also visited the offices, where staff showed visible signs of anxiety, apparently, and refused to officially receive the letter. It paints a picture of deliberate evasion, really.
Okay, so evasion from the top. What about the regulators? Did they get involved?
This brings us to the regulatory response and the challenges highlighted by the source. The Betting Control and Licensing Board, BCLB, that's the government body responsible for overseeing betting activities, did take action.
Okay, what did they do?
They sent a letter to the Communications Authority of Kenya, the CA, which is Kenya's main communications regulator. This was on May 5, 2025.
Oh, the letter said.
It requested the shutdown of 23 stations, specifically citing Yahweh stations among them, for violating a ban on betting advertisements.
Ah, so there was a ban.
Yes. However, the investigation found evidence that betting activities continued on these stations even after that ban was supposed to be in effect.
Yeah.
They documented it happening on May 6, 2025, the very next day.
So the ban wasn't immediately effective, or they just ignored it?
It appears they continued, at least initially. And what's particularly revealing and highlights the adaptability of this alleged operation are the immediate pivots the investigation documented.
Pivots, like changing tactics.
Exactly. When the gambling promotions faced scrutiny and potential regulatory action, they reportedly vanished overnight from the stations.
Just gone.
Just gone. And what replaced them? Promotions for lending services.
Lending services, like quick loans?
Seems like it. But the investigation notes that after NTV inquired about the licensing for these new lending operations,
Let me guess.
they also disappeared.
Wow, okay, so they switched again. To what?
What emerged next, according to the source, is arguably the most morally questionable tactic: fundraising campaigns.
Fundraising for what?
Using distressing images of people with severe medical conditions, presented as appeals for help, like charity drives, but allegedly using the very same mechanism, send money to this till number to solicit money.
Oh, that's awful. Exploiting sympathy and tragedy.
That's what the source suggests. This pattern of seamless transition from gambling to loans to exploiting human suffering under the guise of charity is a key insight from the investigation.
Right.
It suggests a deliberate, agile strategy designed to constantly evade regulation and just keep extracting money. It really highlights a significant challenge for oversight bodies trying to keep up.
And what about the main regulator, the Communications Authority? Did they comment?
Despite repeated attempts by NTV to get a comment on the situation, the Communications Authority of Kenya reportedly remained silent.
Silent. Even with the BCLB letter requesting shutdowns.
According to the NTV report, yes.
This lack of public response from the main regulator, as noted in the investigation, it does raise troubling questions, doesn't it? About oversight, effectiveness, timing. How many more vulnerable Kenyans could potentially be swindled before decisive action is taken?
Those are exactly the questions the investigation implicitly raises.
And there was something else about Profit Miner trying to reach high-level connections.
Yes, the investigation also included a detail about that. The source mentions a letter he apparently sent to President William Ruto.
To the president. What about?
Requesting a waiver on a significant debt, 19 million Kenyan shillings owed to Signet, the company that provides the broadcast signal distribution, a crucial service for TV stations.
19 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot. What reason did he give for wanting a waiver?
In this letter, he reportedly cites various charitable activities, things like employing youth, helping students, running a feeding program, rehabilitating street children, basically presenting his operations as beneficial to society.
Okay.
And the source notes he signs this particular letter not as prophet, but as Bishop David Miner.
Bishop. Interesting change in title for that specific letter.
It is. Again, this information is presented factually as retorted in the source investigation.
Right. And finally, the source included a view from the head of the betting board, the BCLB.
Yes, Peter Muggy, the CEO of the BCLB. His perspective is crucial in classifying this activity. He states this alleged scheme is not actually gambling as defined by their specific regulations.
Not gambling.
Yeah.
But people are sending money hoping to win more.
Right, but he describes it more like an auction or a bidding process, the idea being that the highest payer wins rather than it being a random draw associated with traditional lotteries or betting.
Ah, okay. A technical distinction, maybe?
Perhaps, but legally significant. And he explicitly confirms that no TV or radio station holds a permit for this type of promotion.
Right.
He states that the standard permits they issue for prize competitions are only for promoting a specific product and only for a limited 3-month period.
So even by this auction definition, it's operating without the right permit.
That's what the BCLB CEO's comments imply. It further highlights the alleged illegitimacy of the operation described in the source.
So when we pull back and look at the findings of this whole investigation, what's the key takeaway here?
Well, I think it's that the incredible growth and accessibility of media in Kenya, which is positive in many ways for the nation, has also, as this specific case alleges, opened the door for some pretty sophisticated operations that seem to exploit trust and desperation.
Yeah, these alleged scams, the source shows, can hide in plain sight, sometimes even operating under the guise of religion or respectability.
Mm-hmm.
And they're targeting those who are most vulnerable, people who rely on these free-to-air platforms.
Exactly. We've seen the specific tactics documented by the source, the ghost competitors, the relentless pressure to send more money, the absolutely devastating impact on real victims like Ruth and Joseph,
Yeah.
the alleged strategy of constantly changing the scheme's presentation, gambling, loans, fundraising, just to evade regulation, and the clear challenges faced by regulatory bodies in trying to keep pace with these agile operations.
It's a really stark reminder of the realities faced in navigating information and media in a rapidly evolving digital landscape, especially in places undergoing such fast growth.
It really is. So here's something for you, the listener, to maybe ponder as you go about your day. In a world where technology makes communication instantaneous and widespread, how do you distinguish genuine opportunities from carefully crafted deceptions? Especially when those deceptions might leverage platforms you inherently trust or prey on genuine human needs like hope or desperation. What are the responsibilities, really, of the media platforms that carry this content, the regulators tasked with protecting the public, and ultimately, us as individuals consuming it?
That's a heavy set of questions. This deep dive into the source material really underscores the importance of vigilance and critical thinking, maybe now more than ever, even when faced with what appears familiar or trustworthy.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this dive into these challenging issues reported in Kenya's media space.